This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
It's 11:07 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast. Time to ask the plant rabbi.
Oh, the plant rabbi. Well, we've got a plant sale on Sunday, that's for sure, at the Parks and Rec Center. This is Rabbi Shafir Loeb, right? We've got it this Sunday, the 28th of February. I see I got that date down. And that's from 2 to 5 at the Parks and Rec Center on Oroso, across from City Hall in Port St. Lucie.
Very cool.
No admission, and hundreds of plants have been lovingly raised. All different kinds. I know I'm bringing some different cacti and succulents and some different pothos. Those are things that were requested last time. And I don't even begin to know what all Jay and Matt are bringing, and Donna and some other folks. And we appreciate everyone who's helping to bring plants.
And folks have no excuse. The weather is going to be stellar.
It is stellar. And, of course, we will all wear masks and follow CDC guidelines. And we are inside a city building, so we'll definitely adhere to all of Port St. Lucie's requirements as well. They're not hard. They're easy. If you have plenty of time, there'll be people there to help you with the plants. Nobody will be turned away, as they say.
I've got a complaint.
What's that?
Where's your cowboy hat?
Where's my cowboy? You like that cowboy hat?
I love that. I love that
love
post
my
on
cowboy
Facebook.
hat.
I love that.
So I'm going to say happy Purim, everyone. It is Purim today. And it was kind of funny because I do a traditional Purim reading of the whole Megillah, as they say. And reading it from B'mei Achashverosh, it was the days of Achashverosh, the king of Persia, and Media and Media, and all of that, all the way to the end of it when they're celebrating and having a party. So, and
you brought your party with you today.
I did bring part of my party today. So, so let's see if I can show this at least to the folks on Facebook.
Yeah.
There we go. There's home. I'm trying not to get my hands on it there.
Yeah.
There we go. Those are Hamantaschen, and they come in a variety of flavors.
What now? What did you call that?
Hamantaschen.
Hamantaschen. That sounds German.
It is.
It is German.
It actually. And some of the theories are that it comes from Montaschen, meaning a poppy seed pocket.
Oh.
It's an interesting little cookie. It is a cookie. It's tasty, and the traditional filling is mon or poppy seed.
Oh wow!
Okay, so
and
I'm sure that over time the similarity between mon and ha-mon, the mon pockets, and Haman became obvious to people, and so it became known as Hamantaschen. So in German or in Yiddish, it's Haman pockets. In English, we talk about, and you'll see some pictures of it. They'll show Haman wearing a tri-corner hat. No, that's what the colonials in America wore, tri-corner hats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there were cone hats that were worn, cone-ish hats, and you see them for...
Sounding like Saturday Night Live, the cone hats.
Yeah, not quite that bad. But, yeah.
Okay.
But kind of a cone-ish... with a little thing on the end of it. And you'll see them in some bas reliefs and things like that. Pictures coming out of the Zoroastrian. Here I go
Oh,
again.
there you go. Bringing that up again. Wow.
And that is kind of, so if you look at it sideways, I guess that is kind of triangular. I don't think that's where the shape comes from. I think it's a lot more like what it looks like if you look at it. Okay, but in America, it looks what?
Dunce cap.
No, I'm not talking about that.
I
I'm
used
talking
to
about
wear
the
those a
cookies.
lot.
I'm talking about the cookies.
That was my fashion.
So
attire.
right. So in America, we have a song that says three corners had my hat, and actually it's in Hebrew too. Shalosh pinot. There were three corners to my hat. My hat had three corners, which is supposedly a song that Haman sings.
Two of my interns in San Diego talked about three corners of a hat.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
But
cool.
and in Hebrew, they're called Haman's ears. Right? So I'm making fun of that idea. And if you look at it, it does not take a lot of imagination for an adult to figure out what they really look like. I'll leave it at that. They're tasty.
Okay. Huh.
It doesn't take much.
Okay. So this is a fun holiday.
It is a fun holiday. It's a spring upside down, role reversal, kind of cabin fever, Mardi Gras, all of those things rolled into one. I almost brought my little plastic hammer in so I could bop everybody with it. If it was a non-COVID year, I probably would have done that.
Oh.
But
I think we're going to be a couple years away from that.
it'll be a little while.
Yeah.
I'm still... And people keep sending me the link to the county wait list, and I'm on it. But
we got it. We got it.
I'm glad you guys
First one's
got it.
on Monday. Yep.
I'm glad you guys got it. We're still looking for our appointment. So,
you're one of those youngsters, so I mean,
I hear you, but I still go into hospitals and see people because people need to see their rabbi.
There's something weird because there is some sense of calm that both of us have felt since Monday. And of course, I'm traveling with all these knuckleheads on the basketball bus. So, it's like, but I feel a little bit more relaxed this week.
Good. I'm glad. And hopefully the immunities will come up pretty quickly.
And just mask up. I mean, as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah. And double masking, right? We now know the double masking is a good idea.
Yep, and I wear the face shield when I'm doing basketball games.
I wear the face shield for services
there you go.
Because we have yet to figure out how to make the masks work. So can't drink and
yeah.
I need the drinking to not cough.
Well, I have figured out how to pull the plastic away when I'm trying to have a little water.
At the temple, I have a straw in my water.
Oh, now that's I never thought of that.
Yeah, put a straw in it and you can get underneath the shield.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes...
It makes all kinds of sense.
That makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense. So.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, but I'm one of those people who has what they call orator mouth from talking, that my mouth gets dry, my throat gets dry.
Oh, me too.
And,
I'm doing the play-by-play. Yeah.
So being able to drink something very, very important.
So now your IRSC kids, are they back in class?
IRSC is running 3 formats of classes. They're running the classic online, which we have run for decades, or however long they've been running it. I don't know, at least as long as I've been there. And increasingly, and it's now called IRSC Global, and that's the online classes. We also have online synchronous classes. What's an online synchronous class? It's where you meet with a class once a week on Zoom or Blackboard, Collaborate, or whatever. Collaborate's the preferred. It's inside the shell. And you meet with your students once a week, and you lecture or have a discussion or whatever it is that you choose to do. Mine is usually a little bit of both. And that happens. So that's called synchronous online. They do that from the comfort of their home. They do that, interactively online.
Okay.
And then there's hybrid classes. Hybrid classes are half online and half in class. And those students do come to the campus, and there are rooms set up that are socially distanced and have the barriers and all of that. I actually haven't. I haven't been on campus. I haven't been inside. I've got to get myself inside one of the buildings because there's a book waiting for me on the St. Lucie campus that I've yet to get into.
Oh, the Pruitt campus. Yeah.
The Pruitt campus.
Yeah.
And so I need to get my little rear end over there. But it's the times that they're open and the times that are open on my schedule have not meshed yet. They will.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How are the students handling all this mess?
It's been pretty good. There have been a total of 75 I don't even want to say cases, but quarantine cases, right? So it's not even that somebody has tested positive as it is that they have perhaps been in the vicinity of somebody who's tested positive. There's been a total of 75 of those, none of which have spread on campus.
Good.
Okay, so, it's somebody whose family has had an issue or something like that, and they report that to the college that somebody in their sphere has tested positive. And, so those, and if the college goes in and dramatically cleans that classroom, makes sure that there's no possibility that anybody could possibly carry and transmit on campus.
It was so funny. The other night I was cleaning up after the basketball game, and they had already wiped out half the scores table and sprayed it, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. And I know I was going too slow for them, but got to be somewhat organized, putting it all back together again. But they do a great job of that.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Kindred was talking about the fact that it's a different group. It's not Public Works, but it's something like that is going to basically be taking over the entire Brown Center on the main campus. There's going to be hundreds of people, and, they'll all be socially distanced and for a huge conference there. But, it's like the business classes are starting again in person, and, it feels like it's coming back a little bit.
I think it's starting to. Certainly people are trying to. We have the plant sale. Mm-hmm. Right, and we're doing that very cautiously, very respectfully. I have to tell you that the people who've been involved in it have been wonderful. The customers who've come, we haven't had nobody has argued about any of the social distancing or the safety, procedures. And things have got to happen. You have to continue to live and function. And you just have to be a little bit respectful. We just took our dogs to the vet, and it was a matter of picking. Right, so here was a piece. We picked a vet where we could go into the building, and still be able to social distance. Those were because we didn't want to do the driveway parking lot handoff of an animal who's not hasn't been to the vet in a year now. We've been in quarantine situation for basically a year now. A few days short of that, but not much. I can go back and find out when my Torah moment started, because they started almost immediately. And so you got to function. But I will say, the vet stood at least 6 feet away. Both for our sake and for hers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She didn't want to catch it from us, and we didn't want to catch it from her. Not that either of us have it, but you never know.
Was she wearing a face shield?
She was wearing a mask.
A mask, yeah.
Yeah, she was wearing a mask.
Yeah.
As were we.
Yeah.
And I jokingly wanted to find some that I could put on the dogs, but
that would have been a funny picture.
Yeah.
That would have been a funny picture.
There is a picture that I have on my computer from 1918 showing the cat wearing a mask.
Wow.
The family is all masked up for the Spanish
during
flu.
the pandemic.
Right.
Oh,
and
my.
there's a picture of and it says, mask up or something like that. It's a poster for that. And the cat is wearing one. Probably easier to outfit a cat with a mask than a dog.
Oh, I don't know.
Of course, it depends on how willing said creature is to be dressed up, as it were.
Oh, those claws.
Yeah. Well, they have a real big sense of dignity and freedom.
Is that what you call it?
I'm trying to be nice.
Yes.
You know, we have cats and we have dogs, and
Oh, I didn't know you had them both.
yeah, we have both.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they live in the house, and the cats know their names, and then they usually come when they're called. We teach them to come, and yeah, they may not. We've got
Do you
one that
walk your cats?
no, we do not walk the cat.
See, I saw that in L.A. I'm thinking,
Walking the cat.
you've got to be kidding. This has
Now-
got to be a West L.A. thing.
Now, when we had our hedgehog, we did take the hedgehog out to do his things outside.
Hedgehog. I don't even know what that is.
Hedgehog?
I've heard Cliff is talking
Huh?
about them, but
Yeah, they're about this big, and they've got spines. They're cute as a. I'll show you some pictures afterwards. They're cute as
like
can
a
be.
porcupine?
Cuter, a whole lot cuter.
Okay. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, very, very cute, and because of the cats and the dogs, he lived in his cage when he wasn't being handled, and because we wanted to know where he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sit on
Something.
it. Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, you probably wouldn't do that because he probably wouldn't climb that high. He would be more likely to be under something, and you'd never get him out. But they like to burrow,
Okay.
and we have a bearded dragon, so that's our crazy household. The cats, the
what?
dogs, and the bearded dragon.
Oh, what?
Bearded dragon. It's a big lizard. He's about 18 inches long. He sits.
Another Cliff specialty. He used to have those things in cages and stuff. Big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very friendly. I walk around with him on my shoulder. He'll sit there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't snap at anybody?
No, he's never tried to bite anything other than food.
Mm-hmm.
And he, now here's the piece, right? And this is true with the hedgehog too, which is they don't have necessarily great sight. Now the lizard has better sight than the hedgehog. The hedgehog's half blind, and so you don't go and tap your finger out toward it because that looks kind of like a worm, and that's inviting your finger to receive the teeth end of the critter.
Oh, no.
But if you come at a hedgehog with a hand open, you're not going to get. There's not going to be the problem. And this lizard has never, even when I have touched his nose with a finger, and he's never tried to do anything. Even actually, if I hold a worm up to him, he kind of looks at me like, put it in the bowl, Mom, and I'll eat it there.
And they all coexist.
They all coexist. Now we do
Wow.
not let the cats play or the dogs play with the lizard unattended.
Yes.
Just because of the size difference.
Sure.
Because if you get rowdy, you're not paying attention.
Right.
And it's the same reason why we don't let everybody have free run of everything when we're not theirs. Because what seems like a really good idea in the moment might not be.
Yes, exactly. Wow.
So it's the same as children. You don't leave them home alone either until they're a little bit smarter about what may or may not be a bright idea.
So your Chinese kids are coming, to the end of their New Year's month, right?
Yeah. Their yesterday was actually their Lantern Festival, which is the official end of the New Year celebration. So, and we do have I don't know what they're doing for there used to be or is, or I don't know the status, a Lantern Festival down south. Originally, it was at Murakami Gardens, which is Japanese and not Chinese.
Yep.
But they tend to have a lot of Eastern
Asian stuff.
type celebrations as an educational thing. But I understand that there's now a Lantern Festival organization that runs like a month-long Lantern Festival.
That's cool. Well, it's fascinating to me. All of a sudden, I start thinking about this. Okay, you've got the Lantern Festival.
Mm-hmm.
You've got in New Orleans the Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Brazil's got Mardi Gras. All right before various other holidays.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And this goes back thousands of years.
It does. Spring fever, right? One of the things that we don't hibernate or do winter as rigidly as our ancestors did. They basically did not travel over the winter. They didn't do much of anything other than try to survive Food was much more meager. You didn't go on big excursions. You did that, as the snow was melting, as it got warmer. The warmer the climate, the less you hibernated over the winter.
Not many public stores in the 1700s.
No. No Publix, no Winn-Dixie, no Bravo, none of those things. No Kroger's, no.
Yeah, that's sure. Yeah.
Let's see, Albertsons and Safeway in Tucson. Remember
Yeah.
those? And none of any of those. Those are actually fairly new inventions, and they have dramatically changed life in ways that kids growing up today have no concept. It used to be that in the summer you canned and you hoped that you produced enough to be able to get you through the winter when you couldn't go out, and peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot, 9 days. 9 days old, which would be pretty ripe by then.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was how food stayed, right? You kept a food in a pot and kept it in the hearth, and it stayed warm unless the fire went out, in which case it was peas porridge cold.
Ask a kid what a hearth is now.
Especially in Florida.
Yeah, that's exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. So we don't even realize how much life has changed. And everything's wrapped up in plastic and in the market now. Didn't even have plastic, folks, until we had petroleum.
Sure.
Right? Plastic is a petroleum byproduct.
You bet.
And it was more a case of, we've got all this stuff, we need to do something with it, and look where that's gone. And now we have the all the other things.
Just look back at your science, when you were at Goodyear, and thinking the evolution of like the old Model T tires to what's out there now there's no comparison.
Yeah, it really is dramatically different. The shift from bias ply tires to radial tires. And Goodyear is where you have that wonderful plastic that now is around your Pepsi or Coke or water. Right? In the old days, everything was
in glass.
Bottles in glass. Right? The Starbucks bottles used to be the milk. Milk used to come in little tiny bottles like this, and the milkman would drop off however many you had of them. And the reason it's called an ice box, folks, for anybody who's heard that reference, was that in the old days it was a little tiny box surrounded by ice, and the iceman brought the ice. One of the big things in Tucson is the old ice house.
Yes. Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And, if you were lucky in the winter, you could bring snow and ice down from Mount Lemmon, but otherwise it was no small thing to have ice. And you kept milk and butter and the really highly perishables. And before you could do that, you milked the cow every day, and you didn't have, and we had more disease because you didn't pasteurize. Right? Pasteur.
Oh, never thought about that.
Pasteur came with the idea of cooking the cow's milk so that you didn't have all the disease in it. Because without that, the cows... See, I was allergic to cooked milk as a baby, so my parents had to go into Jersey to a farm that tested the cows daily so they could buy raw milk for me.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Fortunately, I have outgrown that, and I have no problem with any dairy products. I shouldn't say that. If I have too much dairy, I do have a reaction, but I'm not lactose. I don't qualify for lactose intolerance unless I really. Usually, it's too much cheese will get me in trouble.
I love cheese.
I love cheese too, and I remember one time getting myself sick when I was being the polling inspector in Tucson, because cheese you can use with a little bit less refrigeration depending on the cheese, and I had gotten I didn't think about my reactions to cheese, and so I had those little pull apart things that don't need as much refrigeration, and by the end of the day I just had too many of those because didn't break for lunch. The following year, I made a point of
Were any of them
having
refrigerated?
somebody.
Any of them refrigerated?
There
at
was a
all?
cooler that we had.
Oh, okay. I was
but,
going to say.
Yeah, there was a cooler, and it's not going to spoil in a day.
Okay.
Anyway. So, yeah, but I had too much of it, and I came home with the reaction. So, yeah, what the heck. Memories. So, anyway, back to Purim, because that's the holiday that it is today.
Mhm.
And it's an upside-down day, and I do invite people to really carefully read the Megillah. Now, last night I did not carefully read it. I read it in its entirety in Hebrew live on Facebook. So anybody who tuned in to the temple site, the temple page, could have listened to my not melodious voice chanted. I was hoping for a cantor friend of mine to post something, but he didn't.
That's a long read, isn't it?
Well, I normally can do it in 37 to 47 minutes from start to finish, and that's allowing for some of the kids have noisemakers that they use over
Sure.
Haman's name, and some people cheer for Esther and Vashti and the other characters in the story. And obviously I didn't have to worry about that, but I played with it a little bit while I read it. And the other thing that I did, because I was doing this on a Zoom screen share,
Okay. Yeah.
and so I had, thank you, Safaria, which has the Hebrew, and it was up on the screen so that I could run my cursor over the words as I was reading it so people could follow along. And Safaria has the English translation, not the English translation I would have done, but a decent one underneath it so that,
Oh, wow.
okay, so I could bring,
Okay.
and it's every verse, so I could bring the Hebrew to the top of the screen. People could read the English while I was chanting, and so it slowed it down a little bit. It was an hour and I think 10 minutes. First I talked a little bit about it, and I've got a scroll that was my father's, and in fact it's in a metal container and an aluminum container, which was fairly radical, new back then. And I remembered as a child, so, the dinosaurs roamed when it was there. But
Yes.
inside it, talking about time things, is my father's name in Hebrew, punched out on a dymo. Remember the old dymos?
Oh, yeah. I
Right.
remember those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when you used to label.
Dymo, label maker.
Dymo label
Yeah,
maker. And this
yeah.
was a Hebrew one. So his name is in
Oh,
Hebrew
wow.
on the inside of it. And I showed that to people and talked a little bit about it. Talked a little bit about the book of Esther. It's one of the 5 Megillot, 5 stories, 5 writings. It's in the Judaism divides scriptures into 3 sections: Torah, which is the first 5 books, and then prophets, which is the story of the prophets and their prophecy, their teachings. Right? The word prophet means teacher. And then writings, which is the third part of scriptures, and that includes the Psalms and these Megillot, these stories, and things like that. So it's almost like a third layer, the holiest being the Torah, and depending on your tradition is how much you believe that it was dictated by God and transcribed by Moses versus inspired. It's where you are in that spectrum, and Judaism doesn't demand any one position.
Mm-hmm. How many prophets were there that
A
contributed to that?
bunch.
Bunch.
A
Okay.
bunch. And I'm sure that some people know the number off the top of their head. And you've got judges in there, too. So you've got folks like Deborah, who was a judge,
Oh, okay.
right?
Huh.
And many, many judges. Judges did both mediation for people when there was a question. Excuse me a second here. And also leading military when military action was required.
A judge?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
So they were like a magistrate, judge, peacekeeper,
Okay.
a variety of functions. And there's the Song of Deborah, right? Deborah inspires the general to lead with it. And even kings didn't necessarily lead the armies. They were in charge of them.
Okay.
Okay,
Huh.
right? Because David sends Yoav. Right, we talked yesterday on the Torah moment about why you have to have the death of the child, because one of the Psalms was interesting because it talks about death of the son. And, is it talking about his love child with Bathsheba? That's a whole nother long story. And we'll do a special.
We want to go there.
Well, we'll do that as a special, special 1 week.
We'll try that one at midnight. Oh.
Well, that's about, never mind.
There was a song about Love Child, as a matter of fact. Oh.
And of course, Leonard Cohen of blessed memory.
Yes.
Speaks to that,
Mm-hmm.
in the moonlight, because women would take their purifying baths in the moonlight early in the evening.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which is part of the story of Bathsheba. She happens to be taking her purifying bath in line sight of the palace. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just the king happening to spot something. I think there was a little bit of intention there.
Okay.
Yeah. Not one of David's better moments, though. But anyway, back to Purim. It's so fitting for Purim to have to keep coming back to it. So we have Dress Up Friday night tonight. And it's worth noting that Shabbat actually is stronger than Purim, because Purim in a walled city such as Jerusalem, Jericho, and Babylon and other walled cities, there were many walled cities in the day, and they would celebrate Purim a day later, called Shushan Purim, because the fighting inside a walled city is more intense and takes longer. And so in the battle in the book of Esther, it takes longer in the city of Shushan, the capital of Persia. And so Purim is delayed in the cities, in walled cities. It's celebrated an extra day.
So where would that be geographically now?
I'd have to look it up. My memory's failing. I apologize.
So it wouldn't be in Israel.
No, Persia is...
Persia's a long way from
Persia,
it.
it's Iran.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, Persia's Iran. Right, Babylonia is Baghdad.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about things up in the Levant.
Okay, yeah.
But the edict went out, right, because actually Ahasuerus, whether or not that was Xerxes, I don't begin to try to know. People who try to anchor it into history, it's really not meant to be anchored into history. But Ahasuerus, the king in the Esther story, is the king of 127 provinces from Kush, which is Ethiopia, all the way up through Persia. So it's one of the Persian empires.
You hear periodically on the Christian side of people who are literalists when it comes to the Bible.
Yeah.
You have that in Judaism as well? Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah. You've got all different personality types within every religion. And granted, some religions tend to attract certain personality types more than others.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, we've got, I've got a good friend in California who says, the problem in the world is the people who take the Bible literally instead of seriously.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great line. Yeah. Oh, how many thousand people could I send that to? Oh.
But it is one of the challenges, partially because we take things with their modern meanings, like days and hours and units of time, that weren't used in biblical days, and try to force them back on it. Right. So, it's...
You mean Timex wasn't around back then?
Timex wasn't around, but thank you, Arabs, for bringing the Swiss watch movement to Switzerland, to Europe.
Wait a minute. Back up. The Arabs brought...
Yes.
The Swiss...
That's where the watch movement... Because Muslims are much more concerned with the right times to do prayer.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And 2 of their prayers are not during daytime. the pre-dawn
Yeah.
prayer and the evening prayer. One's before sunrise and one's after. So if you're going to measure time when there's not a sun, then your timekeeping's got to be pretty accurate. And so they developed devices to help with telling time.
Wow. Okay.
You know, and then the Swiss watch movement, of course, had its day and taken over by digital. Look, yeah, not a movement, right, but a pulse. And the world clock is atomic. And it certainly didn't exist. It's in Boulder, Colorado. You can still call it and get time, standardized time, if you choose to.
Yeah, look it up in your phone book. Oh, wait a minute. There aren't any more.
Yeah, but you can find it on Google.
There you go.
You can, my
The
my
atomic
husband,
clock, yeah.
my husband still calls time and checks his watch.
Okay.
And checks
so he
his-
still has a watch.
He still has he does. I don't.
I don't either.
But checking time is one of the rituals that my husband has done as long as I've known him. And, there was a time when we paid a toll call for him to do that. Back in the days of
What's that?
toll calls.
And a landline.
And a landline, yeah. And a phone tangled up with a cord in the kitchen that you got an extra long cord, and you'd walk around the house and
stumble over the
yeah.
cords. Yeah. Yeah. Been there, done that.
So, all of that. But it's Purim again, and so here's the question. What is the rabbi going to wear tonight for dress-up Shabbat? And I was mentioning earlier that Shabbat is stronger than Purim, so even though it traditionally would be celebrated tonight in Jerusalem, it actually was celebrated last night. And yes, as I was getting ready to read, I could tune in and have heard the broadcast from different places in Israel that are ahead of us on the clock.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I did it live so that people could hear it live. And tonight we'll do our Purim reading thing. We'll reenact parts of that. And
What time?
7:30.
Okay.
7:30, and you can watch it on Facebook Live. And I had offered Zoom, but nobody took me up on Zoom, so I guess everybody just wants to passively watch, or there'll be a handful of people at the sanctuary. We limit the number of people again so that we can observe social distancing and conduct what we do. And as soon as Purim is done tonight, we've got the plant sale on Saturday, again 2 to 5 at the community at the community center.
Sunday, right?
Sunday.
Yeah.
That's
Not
Sunday.
definitely not Saturday.
Definitely not Saturday. And that's people say, why don't you do it on Saturday? It's kind of like Shabbat.
That's yeah.
We don't do business on Shabbat.
That's right.
So yeah, but we do have Torah study, and that is Zoom and Facebook Live on Saturday morning, and that's at 10. And a brief service, 11-ish, depends what time we finish the Torah study. We're actually going to be looking at the story of Esther and talking about it in great detail. But it's a powerful little story, but it's clearly a little bit weird. And I alluded to some of that while I was reading it. So it took me a little bit over an hour to do all the talking and the reading and then the closing and being done. But I did do that yesterday, and what was really funny to me is I wore these funky ear things on top of my head while I read it that had colored balls in it. And I had and I had set up behind me in Zoom, and I explained this to people, a Persian garden behind me.
Oh, okay.
I thought that would be kind of appropriate. I didn't have your great mural. I had to do it by Zoom. But Zoom was freaking out with these two ear things because they weren't solid. And so it kept seeing the green screen behind me, and the ears would show up with green in them and color. But if I turned a little bit, it tricked.
They change.
Well, it tricked the algorithm, and they'd come and they'd go. And so all the time while I'm reading, they're popping in and out of the picture. I thought it was kind of humorous. I didn't spend a lot of time watching it because I was reading, and scrolling. So I scrolled this text, and when all was said and done, my husband said, "That took you a long time," and I went, "Yeah, it didn't get to read it as quickly And when
Well,
I'm,
you were talking about it too. Right?
I did a
Yeah.
little bit of talking here and there, not much, because I know how long talking can add to it. But when I'm reading it live in the synagogue, and people are sitting there, I'm rushing through it. And you can read it very, very fast. And I didn't read it terribly slow, but I read it slow enough to let people read the English underneath it. So I hope that people who didn't understand what it was, and there were a couple of places where I said that translation, it means big and small, not great and lesser.
Mm-hmm.
There was some liberties taken in the translation.
Yeah.
And
let's not go literal on this, please.
no, you do want to go literal on it, and you want to catch the innuendo and the allusions and all of that. Because what is the golden scepter that the king extends?
Oh, yikes!
That Esther touches. Okay, and we'll leave it at that because I know there are children. And that's one of the challenges with Purim is how do you do all of this discussion and talk and keep it fun and light for the kids? And we do that with noisemakers and obviously with the cookies. It is a fun holiday. There is an instruction. There's a couple of important parts of it. One of the things, this is a holiday where we are instructed to give to the poor. Okay? And you also send portions. You bring food to friends. Mm-hmm. And you bring more than one. Okay, you need to bring multiple parts. So a traditional Purim basket will usually have some fruit in it. It'll have a drink. It'll have something baked. It'll have a variety of foods so that it has more than one course.
Do you do things like that for shut-ins or assisted living places or anything?
You do it for everybody.
Okay.
So yeah, it's done. We did not do it this year.
Well, yeah.
Well, we did do it for Hanukkah, and I seriously thought about it. It's just I didn't have the ability to pull the logistics together again, having done it for Hanukkah. So I know that some of the people who did it for Hanukkah would have gladly done it again, and we didn't get it organized enough, and we've got Pesach coming right behind, and that'll be a major effort of having curbside pickup. Thank you, 2J's, catered meals, $36 if you want to join us for Passover. That's a full ritual meal. That's more than just the amazingly delicious soup, gefilte fish, chopped liver, Cornish hen brisket, whatever the choices are. But it'll also include the different items for the ritual meal as well.
And when is Passover this year?
Passover is the 27th of March. It starts a Saturday night. It's the Saturday night. And this year, Passover and Holy Week are going to overlap. Very often, Holy Week is the week leading up into Passover, Pesach. We'll talk more about Pesach starting next week. So Purim is about having fun. There's another obligation to get so high, to get so drunk that you can't tell the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordecai. And so, unfortunately, you've got people who take advantage of that. And I understand that we have Patrick calling in on line 1. Thank you, Patrick. Patrick? Hi.
Yeah. I have a question.
Sure.
I wanted to ask. I've heard you over time talking about the Book of Esther, and I heard you talk about the scepter that was handed out to Esther. And how do you know specifically that that's what that was? I mean, I've read the Book of Esther plenty of times.
Okay.
So I'll take my answer off the air, but
okay. How do I know what I know about Esther? Good question. Am I phrasing that well?
No, how do you know that particular
The scepter?
thing that the king, held out to her.
I never
was
said what that was, sir. You're Patrick. Again, it's an illusion, but you have to realize what happens is that Esther appears in front of the king, having not been there for 30 days, and he immediately smiles and extends the scepter. Now, is it a gold scepter? It says that it's golden. What does that mean? Yeah, is it something in his hand? So that was the question from Patrick. How do I know what I know about Esther? And yes, most people have read an English version or an English translation of the story. The story is of course written in Hebrew, and in some, like I said, there's a part there where it talks about he made a party for all of the men in Persia who were big and small. Now, does that mean great? It's not the same words as the words for great and lesser, just as they're not the same words in English. So, what does the word big mean? What does the word small mean? What is he referring to? And it's a 30-day drinking party. That's the Hebrew word is mishteh, a drinking party. It's not
Wait a minute. 1 month?
6 months, 180 days.
Oh, wait, 6 months.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
For everybody who's anybody, whether big or small. And then he has a 7-day drinking party for everybody else.
Wow.
And while the king is doing that, Vashti, the first queen, is doing her thing in the House of Women. She's having a drinking party as well. Drinking plays a huge role in this story. It is the story of, they don't have cigarettes yet, but wild women. And
Peyote. Oh.
well, okay, so here's a little bit about the story. We've got 5 minutes that I can do it in. And so the king has this 180-day drinking party, and you can just imagine what's going on with 180 days of sitting in the Capitol drinking.
No, I can't. Oh, gosh.
And then he summons Vashti to come wearing her crown. It doesn't say come nude. That is not in the text, but that has certainly been read into the text.
Implied.
It says, have her come wearing her crown. And you can, then you can, of course, ask anything else. What else is she going to wear? And she says, there's no way I'm going to come into a room of drunken men that way.
Smart move.
Yeah, it's one of the first women's lib things for which she's banished. A lot of people say she's killed. It doesn't say. It says that she is banished. She is never to appear before the king again. So she either disappears inside the harem, because he does have a harem, and after she is not queen, and the king sobers up, and it says that in the text. It says when the merriness of the wine has left him. Okay.
Hangover time.
Then he thinks about what he did to Vashti and how he no longer has a queen. And so he causes, ready for this one, all of the young marriageable women in the 127 provinces to be gathered together under a keeper of the woman, who is someone who wears robes, and you can figure out more about that, who you're going to trust with all the marriageable women to teach them the ways. And they have a night with the king, so it's kind of a Scheherazade story. They spend one night with the king and then go to the house of concubines. But to get ready for this night with the king, they have 6 months with bathing and incense and fragrance and whatever. And then the other 6 months is teaching them what they need to know for their night with the king and giving them cosmetics. It specifically
Cosmetics?
It specifically mentions cosmetics. Oh, yeah. kahol, and all the other wonderful cosmetics that come out of ancient times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they're taught how to make up, how to do whatever it is that they're taught to do by this Tachan and a few others that are the keepers of the women that wear robes, or gowns. Excuse me.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever
whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, there are 5 genders mentioned in the book of Esther, but you have to read it carefully.
Okay.
Yeah, there's multiple genders because of, among others, the ones that are teaching the women how and what to do. So they go and they get to pick whatever things they want to take with them to entertain the king for the night. And they spend a night with the king, and then they are taken in the morning to the house of concubines. They're transferred from this waiting beauty pageant house to the house of concubines, and there they stay unless the king calls for them by name.
Wow.
And Esther is one of the ones rounded up in this. And think about it for a minute. What's going to happen in society if you take all of the young marriageable women and collect them up?
No children.
Well, and no marriages.
No marriages. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For a couple of years until the next crop grows old enough. Clearly there's some weirdness in the story. Right, and there's more than it's going to take him a year to go through. He's going to spend years going through this group. And when Esther appears, right, Hatach tells her what to take and what not to take, and she follows his advice. That's very clear. She takes his advice, and she's wonderful to look at, etc. And when the king sees her, he instantly is stricken with her, puts the crown on her head, and she becomes queen. And that means she gets to live in the adjoining facility for her and her maids and her attendants and all of that. And at the beginning of the story, when Haman sends out the decree that the Jews are to be killed on the 13th of Adar, which was yesterday, that there's all kinds of stuff going on, but Esther hasn't been called to appear before the king for 30 days, and her uncle Mordecai, who's one of the heroes in the story,
there we go.
There we go, and you'll have to come and hear the rest of this. We'll talk more about it.
And we all know
music.
The king and his illusionary scepter went on to appear with David Copperfield in Las Vegas, right?
Well, that and the gallows is 75 feet high. Think about that a
gallows
moment.
is 75
So there's some numbers and there's some words in this story that tell you a lot about the genre of it and how it's meant to be taken. Have a great time. I hope everybody has a wonderful Purim, a great Shabbat tonight. Please come out to our plant sale on Sunday from 2 to 5 at the Parks and Rec Center, and we'll talk more about Pesach or Passover starting next week. This has been Rabbi Shafir Loeb of Congregation Eitz Chayim, your Jewish home in Port St. Lucie.
You've been listening to Ask a Rabbi right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie.